So as you mentioned, Chuck Mullins, started my first internet business in '96 when I graduated high school. I bought a domain name. My mom told me I was crazy for starting something. But since then, I never had a real job. I just owned my own businesses. At some point, I started making more money than I knew what to do with. In college, I was at the peak. I was making probably $80,000 a month off my businesses. And it's like you can only buy so much junk. So I started trying to figure out what to do with it, right? So I started looking at reading the books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and investing in real estate, and buying a car wash, or buying a storage facility, apartment complexes, just all these crazy things. And then it just kind of led me back to thinking, like, I should probably just do what I know, right? What I know is running internet businesses. So I started speaking at various conferences just to try to build some lead flow, to find more companies to buy. I bought several businesses off of Flippa, like you said, ranging from like a couple $100 up to buying some deals off of Flippa for 7 figures. So bought and sold multiple 7-figure businesses. Started helping other people buy and sell businesses. That's why I'm working with Quietlight now. It's the closest thing I've had to a real job, but still it's fun. I still own a lot of internet businesses, and I love it. So what I want to talk about first is, it's the 4 pillars of value and how to position your business for sale, right? So we got to figure out what's the value of a company if we're going to try to sell it. So ultimately, it's what we call the seller's discretionary earnings times some sort of multiple. And you heard one of the speakers say the multiple in a form of monthly. We say it in a form of annual. I think the original reason that people started speaking in terms of monthly, like 24, 36, was to try to falsely equate it to what you see in the stock market, where you hear about companies that are trading for like a 20 times PE. So I think they were trying to act like they were the same, but it's a magnitude of difference different, right? Because it's annual versus monthly. So we speak in terms of monthly. So like a 3x multiple would be the equivalent of a 36 times monthly multiple. So you multiply the SDE times the multiple, and you get the value, right? So if this one is 300,000, annual SDE times 3, be worth 900,000 plus inventory. So when you're looking at deals, you have to make sure that if you're looking at Flippa or if you're looking at a broker, that they're talking about apples to apples. Because if I tell you something's 900,000, I'm saying it 900,000 plus inventory. Somebody else may be saying, it's 900,000, but that's inclusive as inventory or of inventory. And if you're the seller, it makes a big difference, because it may be, if I'm saying including inventory, it's inflating the multiple to make it look like I'm selling it for more than I really am. And as a seller, that's bad for you, because it's the buyer's looking at a higher multiple, right? So they may see it's 3.5 when it's really a 3x. So you're thinking that somebody might be getting you more. Oh, I can get you a 3.5. Really, they're getting you a 3. So it's something to kind of look out for. So what is the seller's discretionary earnings? Seller's discretionary earnings is the net income of the business, right? You've got your income, then you got your expenses, your COGS, and then you've got your net profit, right? So the income of the business plus add backs. So does anybody know what an add back is? Is everybody familiar with that term? So looks like a mixed crowd. What percentage of people here are business owners versus somebody who might be looking to buy a business? Or who's here is a business owner? Okay, so the majority of everybody's business owner, right? So add backs are non-business expenses that you may, have on your tax returns for tax purposes. So example is a cell phone, right? We all have a cell phone, but do I need it for business? Sure, I need it for business, but we already have a cell phone. So it's a business expense, but it can be an add back, because the assumption is everybody would already have a cell phone, right? So a car. Do I need the car for the business? Well, it's an internet business. Do I really need it? Sure, for tax purposes I do. But if I'm not like actually delivering goods and I'm not using that vehicle for some specific business-related thing, generally it's an add back. All right. Also, it's one-time expenses that are not recurring. So if I need to make a mold for some product that's evergreen, which I'm going to be selling in perpetuity, then that can be added back because it was a one-time expense that's not reoccurring. But if I'm selling iPhone cases, right, I need to put a new iPhone case out each year. So that would not be an added back expense, because it's a recurring expense that you have to do every year. There's some kind of like in between in there where it's like something you have to do every 5 years. So then you might amortize that over 5 years and say, well, if it cost me 50 grand and it's 5 years, so then I would say, okay, it's 10,000 of that cost per year. And then I would distribute that across the P&L on a basis to add back a portion of it. Okay, so there's various multiples. It depends on the type of niche you're in. So an example would be a physical products business, right? So it's not just the niche you're in, but also the size of the business, how much profit you're making. So if you're making less than $700,000, then your multiple on like a physical products business is 1.5 to, let's say, 3.5x. A lot of variability in there depending on numerous factors. And that's because you're selling to a specific type of buyer. You're selling to the average Joe who's got some money saved up. They're looking to buy something. Maybe they're a serial entrepreneur. They got some money. They're looking to strategically buy something to bolt onto an existing business. When you get above that 700,000 range, and probably in the like million range, and then once you get up into like the 2 to 5 million of profit, it's just different types of buyers. You have the private equities come in. You got the big players who are willing to spend much higher amounts on a similar business. So the bigger you can grow your business, it seems like obviously the bigger you can grow it, the better, right? But it really does make a difference because you're going to get a higher multiple when you're making that additional money as far as the SDE goes, seller's discretionary earnings. Sure. That would be net, so the profit of the business. And that would be the SDE again, which is the seller's discretionary earnings, which is the profit plus add backs. All right, so, I didn't do it. All right, so the first slide, which we'll get back to in a second, is just a typical P&L statement, right? So this is what... So this would be what a traditional business has, right? You've got your top line with your profit or with your income. You've got your COGS, right? Your cost of goods sold. Then you've got your various expenses, which leads you to the total income. So this is kind of the EBITDA value of the business. This is before the SDE. So next, we've got the same thing. And I know it's hard to see, guys. I'm sorry. I thought we were going to have a bigger screen. Next, we have the add back. So the bottom line is the add back schedule. So in this one, it has interest, right? So let's say you're operating your business and you're using credit cards and sometimes you don't pay it off fully and there's some sort of interest on there. That's an add back because the person who's buying your business doesn't necessarily need to use that. If they have enough cash, then they don't have to borrow. So it's not a true expense to the business. It's just something you're using to manage your cash flow. Then there's things like the owner's salary, okay? With any brick and mortar, mainstream, internet type business that's not at the PE level, where it's, the 2, 5 plus million, you're gonna add back a single owner's salary, okay? So if the business was making 50 grand, plus I'm paying myself a $50,000 salary, then really it's making $100,000, okay? So there's a big difference there, and if you don't know about that add back, you would think, oh, it's only making 50 grand. But when you're positioning it to sell, you need to know what are realistic add backs that are standard, industry standard, right? And this is industry standard across for everything. The whole idea of add backs is like what they teach when you go to like broker school, okay? So there's, like I said, there's cell phones, there's one-time expenses. So you get your bottom line here, and this number is, let's say it's $545,000 SDE, okay? Now you may think, I'm done, great. That's what I'm gonna put my multiple on. But this P&L is what's called a cash basis, and there's such a thing called an accrual basis. Does everybody know what a cash versus accrual is? Okay, most people don't. So a cash statement is I buy inventory today, and if I spend 50 grand on my inventory, I throw it on the books. I bought 50 grand of inventory in November, okay? And then I'm gonna sell it over time, and next time I buy inventory, I throw it on my P&L. The problem with that is you're not accounting for the cost of goods sold at the time of the actual sale. And let's say it's November and I buy $100,000 of inventory that may last me for a year. Well, that makes my P&L look horrible because I've just bought inventory that I haven't sold yet. So if you flip your financials to an accrual basis, it's gonna do two things. First off, it's gonna flatten out your P&L. So let's say there's some seasonality and your P&L goes like this naturally, right? This is the profit, like January, December, it does something like that. Well, if you're on a cash basis and you're buying large amounts of inventory at a single point, it's going to go like this, right? And it's going to show that you lost a bunch of money in 1 month. But people want sustainability in a business. So when you do it on an accrual basis, you're saying, well, I sold $10,000 worth of product this month. That product cost me $3,000. So my gross income was $7,000, right? This month I sold $5,000. It cost me $2,000 worth of inventory. It's $3,000 gross income. Whereas again, if you sold $10,000, you bought $100,000, it would show that you had negative $90,000 of gross income. So when you flip it to an accrual basis, especially on a growing business, you'd go from, $545,000 to, drum roll, to, on this example, $606,000, right? It's a $60,000 difference by flipping it because you bought more inventory than you needed in the trailing 12 months, and that inventory is what's going to be sold in the future. So it's a great way to add value to the company. If you don't know about it, you don't know about it, right? And we don't know what we don't know. All right, so when we talk about value, we call it four pillars of value, right? There's risk, growth opportunity, transferability, documentation, and verifiability. All these things are super important when it comes to figuring out what the value is, right? Where's that multiple going to come in? So the first one, risk. So the number one thing people are going to want to know is the age, right? If the business is less than 24 months old, you're not going to be able to see the seasonality of the business. Like if it's 12 months old, you'll see something going like this across the months. But what does that tell you? It tells you zero. Because was it a seasonal trend that made it go up? Or was it something that fundamentally changed that made it go down? Like what's going on? But when you have 24 months, you can look at the year over year, January versus January, February versus February, March versus March. And you'll be able to see like, okay, well, last year January was really big, but this year it was down. So something happened there. What happened? Whereas if they both are just going like this and they're following, across the year, well, then that's, okay, yep, August is always really strong, February is always really weak. But if you only had that 1 year, you wouldn't know, like, what was causing that. But when you have multiple years, you can see that. So age is really important, not just for being able to see the year-over-year stuff, but just there's the impression people have, like, an older business is more stable. Anytime I list a business, I sold it. It was a outdoor sporting equipment business that was started in the 90s. It was like 26 years old or something. You wouldn't believe how many people requested everything on that one because they see this really old business. So like, if it's been around this long, like it's got to be stable, right? I've got another one that was it's a candy business. It was 17 years old. Those are the ones that get the most inquiries, regardless of what the niche they're in, because of that age. So it's really important to have a seasoned business. So again, if you can wait at least 24 months before trying to sell a business. So defensibility, one of the presenters in the last one, somebody asked them about that. It was you. So what do I do if somebody just wants to come in? And I remember seeing on Flippa, I don't know, it was like 7 or 8 years ago, somebody had like how to bake a potato. And it was making like $2,000 a month. And it's like, everybody's just going to go out and try to make a website that's like how to bake a potato, right? Because there's not a lot of defensibility in that, right? And it makes $2,000 a month. It's easy. I'll just write a couple articles. But that's not a defensible business, right? If I've got patents and different things of that nature, so trademarks, copyrights, patents, different things that make the business defensible, that's going to add a lot of value. So you got to think about it when you're buying or selling your business. What's the defensibility of the business? So if I go on Amazon and I see, a thing that somebody's selling and they've got 5 stars, but they've only got, 3 ratings on it, how defensible is that? I can go to China, get that same product made, throw it up, and in 2 seconds I've got 3 5-star reviews. If they've got 1,000 reviews, well, now we're talking, right? Because they've got 5 stars on 1,000 reviews. You come in with your brand new product. It's hard to compete against that one, even at a lower price. Like if they're selling for $30 and you come in at $25, I don't know about you, but like I buy stuff on Amazon and I know that that's the exact same product with a different brand on it. but I'm still going to buy the one that has the 1,000 reviews because maybe there's something different about it, right? So defensibility in a business is very important, and it helps with the value of the business. Link profile. So if we're talking about like a content site, let's say that potato site was 20 years old, and it's not really a potato site, right? It's really a cooking site, and they had one article about potatoes. If it's 20 years old, they've had 20 years to acquire links. If I come in and I start a cooking website right now, how long does it take me to acquire links? Do I get those really strong links that were from like Entrepreneur or wherever that have been there for 10 years? Like that's not something you can replicate overnight. So there's a certain defensibility aspect by having a really strong link profile like on a content site. Diversification. So how diversified is the business? If I'm selling strictly on Amazon, again, it's a mediocre product, whatever, but like that's a risk. What if Amazon just decides that they don't like me for whatever reason and cuts that off? 100% of my revenue is gone. We used to own an online shoe store, and we were getting ready to buy a business, and we're doing our due diligence, and we get an email from Amazon saying that there were certain terms that were changing, and we knew that business was going to get the same exact email that we got. That business, it was 1/3 of their revenue. They had like a Shopify site, and then eBay. Well, we knew overnight that 1/3 of their business was going away. Now, that's pretty catastrophic, right? But it's not going to put you necessarily out of business. But what if that was 100% of the business? What if 100% of the business was Amazon and it went away overnight? That's risk, right? So the more things you can do to diversify your sales channels, your marketing channels, like your product offerings, the more things you can do to diversify, the higher value you're gonna get for your business because there's not as great a risk of everything just going away overnight. So 100% Amazon business probably sells for 15 to 25% less than if it was like a Amazon and Shopify. So it's a pretty big difference. And not only was it going to sell for a lower price, the one that has the diversity is going to get more interest from various people. It's going to have more offers. It's going to sell quicker. So it's not always just about the price, but also the speed to closing. Okay, so growth. When do you sell your business? You don't sell your business when it's a hockey stick going straight up because, again, it's the trailing 12 months is what you're multiplying the multiple on. And if you made $5,000 this month, and then, that's January, and next January you made $20,000, there's a $15,000 difference there. And that $15,000 difference, if you're making, let's say, $100,000, now you waited a month and now you made $115,000. And when you add on the 3 times multiple, it's $45,000 worth of value. So every month you hold on to it while it's, hockey sticking, it's adding a tremendous amount of value. When it's going like this is when you want to sell it, right? Still some growth, but not the hockey stick. When you don't want to sell it is when it's doing this. And it's really hard to time this stuff, because who knows when your business is going to turn. But as soon as it starts going down, the multiple falls off a cliff. So you don't want to sell when it's skyrocketing. You want to kind of sell when it's still growing. You don't want to sell like that. So again, the worst time to sell is when you're going down. Opportunities, right? So most buyers want to grow the business, probably eventually sell it. So they want to know that there's opportunity to grow the business. So every time you think of an idea, write it down regardless of whether you're going to do it, right? Have a list of opportunities that somebody else maybe would be interested in doing, okay? And, you get to them as you can, but you don't have to get to them. And again, when the value is based on the trailing 12 months, so if you have an idea that's, a 25% chance of working for you, and it's going to cost a bunch of money, don't do it, right? If you plan on selling within the next, 12 months. People often think of their business as like when they sell a house. And when you sell a house, the last thing you do before you sell it is you clean up the yard, you paint it, you do all these things to fix it. You fix that light switch you've been meaning to fix. And a house that adds value, and a business that doesn't, because you've just removed the opportunity without getting the value out of that, right? So you're buying a business based on the trailing 12 months revenue. If I fix something today, I've not increased the revenue, but I've removed the opportunity. So it's the last thing you want to do. If you want to do a bunch of work to grow the income, do it 6 months, 12 months out. That way you've done the stuff, you're getting the value because now you're increasing, and then you sell it later. So there's open paths to growth, and then there's just like growth, right? So you want to give people realistic ideas for growth, right? Something that maybe you've already started on, but you haven't fully maximized it, so they can see like, oh yeah, like I see what you're doing there. If I pour some fuel on that fire, like I'm really going to be able to grow it. That's what everybody's looking for. And kind of getting back to the house analogy, like when I was looking to buy businesses, I wanted a business that was, when I looked at it, I said, that business is making how much money? That thing, really? Because it looked like a piece of junk, and I knew that, hey, if they're making that much money looking like this, if I can put it on my expertise and tweak some stuff, do some conversion rate optimization, how much more is the business going to be worth? So transferability, really, really important, okay? So when you have vendor relationships, any kind of relationship you have, it needs to be able to transfer. If the vendor relationship where you're getting your products from won't transfer, then the business isn't sellable. Because if I need to buy product and I can't buy it anymore to sell, then how do I sell the business? If they're giving me a 20% discount because it's my brother-in-law who's doing it and he's not willing to extend those same terms to the new buyer, then what I would have to do is I'd have to go back to my trailing 12 and add 20% onto my cost of goods sold, because that's what the buyer is going to expect, okay? So don't take shortcuts. I see it all the time. Yeah, I've just got a handshake deal with my vendor. We're good, it'll transfer. Like, nobody's going to buy it like that. You need to get it in writing, what the terms are. You know, how much is it costing? All that kind of stuff, because if you don't have it now, you're going to have to get it before you sell the business, and you don't want the vendor to have leverage over you when you're getting ready to sell the business. You want to have all that stuff in place because they can tank your deal. Amazon, Facebook, eBay, PayPal. You got to make sure all those things are set up in a way that you can transfer it. So people always think, oh, you can't transfer an Amazon account. You can. What you don't want to do is have an Amazon account with 3 different businesses in it that you want to sell one. Because now you have to take that one out and spin it off into somebody's new account, and everybody's really afraid of that. You can do it, but people are very afraid of doing that. Facebook. If you've got like multiple ad accounts running in one account, you can't necessarily split that ad account off. Now this is the way Amazon wants you, or Facebook wants you to do. They want you to have it all in one. But if you're only selling one of those 3, you're in trouble. And you may not realize that until you're actually getting ready to close and you figure out that, oops, I don't know how to split this ad account off. PayPal. Let's say you got a subscription-based site where you're paying $20 a month. That's all going in through your PayPal account. Can you transfer that? The answer is yes, but you got to know how, right? And you have to be ready for that. And again, if you have commingled stuff in there where it's multiple businesses going to the same PayPal account, you're probably going to be in trouble. So special requirements, right? You see this a lot on like mommy blog sites, you know, where the brand is the person, or you see it on like sites where, you know, somebody's a guru or they're selling a course where they're in the video and like they are the course. 2 minutes? Oh, I better speed it up. So you don't want to try not to brand it around yourself, right? So everything you can do to maybe make like a fictitious character or caricature that you're using, do that. Don't make it about yourself. I saw one time recently a guy was selling what's it called? I can't think of it. A forum. And he had a bunch of moderators that worked for free. He didn't tell them they were selling the business. He sells the business. The moderators find out. They're like, we're out of here. So the buyer lost all of his moderators. So now how do you moderate the forum? It's a problem. So you got to think about those type of things. Staff and contractors. You want to make sure all of your staff is going to be willing to transfer. If you have staff that is working on multiple businesses, like that can be an issue. Like if you own 3 businesses and one guy's doing your customer support on each, that could be a problem, right? So try to think about these things. You kind of want to insulate it if you have multiple businesses where these people are working on this and they're going to transfer. Standard operating procedures. Make sure you have standard operating procedures. Okay, so financials. Don't use an Excel spreadsheet. Like everybody starts that way, but use QuickBooks, use Xero, use some professional accounting software. Make sure you have clean financials. It's really important. You want to have bank statements, tax returns, merchant statements, things that somebody's going to be able to verify that they know like that your P&L matches up to all these things. Because when you sell your business, a good buyer is going to want to go and rebuild the P&L from all of these documents. They're going to want to look at your bank accounts, and they're going to look and make sure that all these numbers add back up to what the P&L says. So metrics. Everybody watches Shark Tank probably. Know what your metrics are. When they ask you, oh, what's your customer acquisition cost? Like, know that. It's important. What's your lifetime customer value? Like, these are all important things that's going to build credibility as a seller, that you know what you're doing. Okay, again, SOPs. Like, it's hugely important for transferring the business. Like, somebody needs to be able to step in on day one and run the thing. So make videos of what you're doing and how different things happen, right? Write documents. Just create a lot of standard operating procedures. And we're done.